Hey guys, Easy as Pie here again. Today I've got a pretty neat video for you, but it just about broke the bank. Not one, but 4 different types of exhaust, all for your comparison. So just to go down the lineup, here I've got a stock exhaust, followed by a Kirker exhaust, a Kaufman, a West Coast, and an old school Butch's jet ski shop. So you may notice some similarities and differences right away. Starting with just how small the stock exhaust is compared to some of these aftermarket exhausts. Now, overall lengthwise, it is about the same as the Kirker. So just to give you some basic numbers, the stock exhaust, the header portion is approximately 9 inches, and followed by the expansion chamber portion is approximately 20. Now on the Kirker exhaust, the header is still 9 inches, but the expansion portion is 22. The Kaufman, you've got a 10-inch header followed by a 27-inch expansion chamber, which is about as long as they get. Now, as far as the West Coast and the Bush's jet ski exhaust go, they are, in principle, they're identical. They look like they basically came out of the same mold. I don't know what the exact history is with these, but I can tell you as far as manufacturing and their overall construction, they are identical. So the header portion is 10 inches, and the expansion chamber portion is 25 inches. Now, the one major difference you're going to find between, well, not the only major, but one of them, is that the header portion is typically a consistent diameter all the way from start to end. Now you'll find on these two, the header diameter actually expands as it's coming down. So you have a gradual increase in that gas volume as it goes down through the pipe into the expansion chamber portion. Now, I'll give you a brief rundown on exactly how these work. This would be your exhaust manifold right in here, and your engine would be behind all of this, just to get you oriented. Now, when gas exits the exhaust side of the engine, it leaves here, and it's kind of broken down into 2 pieces. You have the gaseous portion of what's leaving here, and as you know, 2-strokes are incredible sound-making machines, and there's actually a sound wave that's traveling through here as well, and most of the action that's being performed on this is a process of that sound wave and how it travels. So as your gas leaves, it's getting to here, and it's staying the same volume until it gets basically to this point, at which point that sound wave and the gaseous volume start to increase. Now, this portion of the exhaust is, in old school terms, what was known as the megaphone, because it actually expands that the sound wave as it's going down here, and increases the length of that sound wave as it comes through here. This section is kind of a spacer. There's no actual action that's going on in this portion except for delaying the time that it takes that sound wave as it's expanding here to travel from this point to this point. Now, what this portion does, it is called the stinger, or I don't know, there's some other names, but basically what it's doing is it's taking that sound wave as it's hitting this back portion, it is actually reflecting that energy backwards back into the combustion chamber, actually. Because initially what's happening is the mass of all this material moving out, as it's being initially pushed out, as soon as the intake port on your engine opens up, your exit port is also open, your exhaust port, and it's actually sucking fresh fuel and air all the way out to, somewhere in this area, somewhere in here. So if that were to combust, you'd literally just be throwing away perfectly good fuel and air. So that's where this portion comes into play. As it's pushing backwards, at that point in time, your intake port is now closed because the cylinders come back up, and this pressure wave is forcing additional fuel and air into your combustion chamber. So it has kind of, it operates on basically the same principle as a turbo does. It forces air and fuel back into the engine, so you have additional combustion power in there basically. And that's how all this kind of works. This is the expansion and lengthening of the wave. This is a delay phase, and this is the return phase. And also keep in mind that the exhaust that you see coming out of your tail end of your ski, or even out of the front of your ski if you've got one of the older skis, it is not the exhaust that has immediately come out of the exhaust port on your engine. There's a good chance that that exhaust is from 5 or 6 or 8 strokes ago, actually. So as it's leaving the chamber, you know, I suppose you're getting immediate response from 1 stroke basically to this point. It'd be somewhere in that range in there. But then you also have your water box off to the, you know, you've got more hosing here in your water box, and then you've got your loop to keep water from backing up into your entire system, and then you've got that entire length going out the back of your ski or directed out the side of the front of your ski. So yeah, I mean, you might be looking at, you know, 3 to 4 or 3 to 8 strokes previous is where that exhaust has come from. Now on the exhaust header, generally you'll see pretty much the same exit outlet diameter as you do on the inlet, but on these newer pipes you'll see them sometimes they're slightly larger on the outlet bore. You're not going to see a hard increase in the diameter just because you want to keep your exit velocity of your gases relatively high, and if you increase that diameter you're going to see those gases slowing down. So typically you only see a couple degrees of diameter increase across the entire thing, but it will be much more dramatic in some pipes compared to others. One of the characteristics to note between the stock pipe and the aftermarket pipes is the stinger, or the convergent cone at this end here. In order to keep your airflow relatively laminar going through, you want the exhaust side on this to be centered relatively in all directions. Now, something you'll note right here, in order to give an easier manufacturing process, they've got a straight edge here with the taper coming down to the bottom. So that is, you know, while these two exhausts may be relatively similar overall, you're going to see much better performance also based on the one fact that your exhaust flow coming through here is going to be more laminar compared to the stock pipe. Well, let's get on to some of these other ones. So we see the Kirker pipe here. Functionally, it's pretty much identical, except for right away we see that the return phase is lengthened quite a bit, and the initial lengthening of that waveform is pretty much the same, and the delay here in the middle section is pretty much identical. Now these three, functionally they are pretty much the same thing. The biggest thing to note between these two and this one is just the construction. These two are actually constructed with similar techniques. This pipe, it is actually entirely constructed of hydroform steel. As you can see, the seam all the way across the bottom and top. So what they actually did is this was capped off on either end for each of these individual pieces. It was literally sheet steel at the beginning, and they pumped tons of pressure inside of this thing and it expanded the metal. Same with this. I don't know if you guys watch Colin Furs. I don't sport too many other shows, but he actually did an episode on this where he took sheets of steel and made shapes very similar to this actually, where he used a pressure washer and welded on a nozzle at the end basically, and expanded this piece of steel to make a shape, like I said, very similar to this. Now, this actually does have a cast header on it. This is a hydroformed header. As you can see on the Kawasaki, the expansion header is hydroformed with a cast header. And as you can see on the West Coast and the bushes, they're much hardier. These are actually all cast, both of them. The entire construction is. Um, Other things to note: number of ribs. If you're going to purchase a used one of these, I believe they come 2, 4, 6, 7 or 9 bands. I can't remember. But you may find that if they have less than that, when you're going to purchase them, someone may have actually cut this down so it would fit inside of their ski. So just remember, you know what? I've got one of these. Why not just take a look? So these two have 7, and I actually took this one apart, and it only has 3, and the metal on the inside of this one actually looks fairly raw, so I'm guessing someone cut this down at some point to be even shorter than what it is now. Now, regarding weight, the stock pipe actually weighs about 5 pounds, 11 ounces, somewhere in there. The Kirker is 5 pounds, 14 ounces pretty much. The Kaufman is 7 pounds, 5 ounces, and then the West Coast and the Bushes are both about 7 pounds, 10 ounces. So you're looking at pretty much a 2-pound spread between the stock and even the heaviest of the two exhausts. So if you're looking from the weight perspective, I always have kind of a hard time buying it. If you're looking at a couple pounds difference and you're really concerned about it, lose a couple pounds. Now, as far as durability goes, definitely your West Coast and your Bushes. I mean, these things are heavy duty metal. They're, unless you hit this thing with a hammer, and a really big hammer, I mean, you are not going to hurt either of these. As far as the Kaufmans and Kirkers go, yes, the header is good on this one, but these ones you could dent up pretty easily if you're getting pretty carried away, or drop one of these things while you're working on your ski. Now, as far as the stock goes, the stock is surprisingly hardy. I mean, this is a cast piece, and while this is hydroform steel, it is pretty durable, far more durable, I'd say, than the Kirker or the Kaufman metal. Now, at the end of the day, you probably all already know which one I would choose. It would be one of these two. You're going to see a much better performance increase across the entire range, higher durability, and they look pretty darn nice compared to all these others. And not to say these aren't nice exhausts, but my preference goes for functionality, you know, and appearance across the two. So. But mostly functionality, I guess, at the end of the day. Anyhow, I hope this has been somewhat helpful. I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what you're actually looking at when you're shopping for these and how they help your ski perform. So anyways, if this was helpful, throw up a note. If there's something I missed or something you'd like to see, throw it in the comments section, and I will gladly go back and edit, you know, what I can, and, you know, include things in further videos to help you guys out more. So thanks for watching, guys.